As I was making my Alien Isolation review, I couldn't stop thinking about all the things that Prey did so much better. If you haven't seen my Alien Isolation video yet, I recommend you start there, otherwise we'll be moving forward. Despite Alien and Prey being quite different in their presentation, they share a surprising number of game mechanics and a few other things. We can start with a few simple comparisons that actually have a significant impact on the game. Alien Isolation has a lot of consoles placed all around, and so does Prey. Prey has a lot more actually. Alien makes the consoles really cumbersome to use. At a console, you have to press a key to use it, get pulled into a locked view, wait 3 seconds for it to boot up, scroll to each option and press a button to view a document, and press another button to back out of it before you're able to scroll to another, and finally back out of whatever document you're looking at before you can back out of the console completely. The consoles are usually filled with pointless memos or backstory about the ship that you're on. It's not story, it's lore. And lore is fine, but it's certainly not necessary to the plot. It's backstory. Most, and I do mean most of the consoles are unnecessary to the progression of the game or the core story. And they don't tell any interesting side stories that the player can really get invested in. If the console happens to be useful to a player's progression, it contains one of two things: a passcode or an activation option to open a door or start a system. What are the consoles like in Prey? Well, first you can just walk up to it and select something to look at. You don't have to enter into a locked view. You can walk up to it, click stuff, and immediately walk away. There are lore pages to read all throughout the game if you want to, but there are also some good dramatic stories between side characters. Character interviews that hint at major story twists, a personnel location system to locate the bodies of the deceased to see if they have anything important on them, utility functions that aren't just passcodes or door switches. You also download area maps, you get item fabrication plans, objective markers for side quests, buttons to activate experiments that have different outcomes based on your decisions. And since we mentioned passcodes, some doors in Prey have passcodes just like doors in Alien Isolation. And how do you get the passcodes in Alien Isolation? Turn on the computer and read it. Whereas the computers in Prey allow emails to be scrolled through quickly and any important passcodes will be noted by your character and stored in memory. But passcodes aren't always on consoles like they are in Alien Isolation. Maybe they'll be coded into secret messages and deciphered by the player. Maybe they'll be written on a post-it note and stuck in an easy-to-miss location. And what's beautiful about the passcodes is that they're entirely optional. Passcode panels have a hacking option. As you spend your upgrade points, called neuromods, maybe you don't want to spec into stealth or strength or alien powers, maybe you want to spec into hacking skills. That way you don't have to find codes or other ways into rooms. You can just go in directly. That is when you have to play a minigame. And you guessed it, even the minigames in Prey are better than the ones in Alien Isolation. Alien's minigames are mindless. They require absolutely nothing of the player, and in many of them, if you hit the wrong button, there's no penalty. They just sit there and wait for you to hit the right prompt. If you spec into hacking in Prey, you'll get a little hacking minigame where you have to navigate a circle to this other point, getting around obstacles and avoiding shock panels that slow you down. And when you get to the point, you have to quickly match a random button prompt. If you fail too much and run out of time, you receive an electric shock which docks health from the character. I was never that impressed with Prey's minigames, to be honest. I mean, it's pretty simple. But Alien Isolation puts them in a whole new perspective, because now I can see that Prey's minigames require player coordination. They progress in difficulty. You can learn to get good at them. They punish you for doing them incorrectly. You have to pay attention to the prompt at the end and be ready to act quickly, while Alien Isolation's minigames could be completed by someone in a coma. And, again, in Prey, they are optional. If you don't spec into hacking, you won't play any minigames at all. And it's absolutely astounding that a game with an optional minigame got it so right, when a game that's built entirely around minigames got it so wrong. Let's take a moment to talk about enemy AI, the facehuggers versus the mimics. This may not be entirely fair because the mimics are a common enemy throughout the game and the facehuggers only appear in a couple sections, but their behaviors really show off the world of difference in the enemy AI. Mimics can look like anything they want. They might look like a coffee mug, or a health pack, or this thing in the bathroom. I walk into a room and I look around and I say, why are there 2 chairs right there? That doesn't seem right. I knew it! Mimic! Mimics scatter across the floor like facehuggers in the Alien movies. They're intelligent, they run and hide and wait for you, they move around so you can't hit them. They're little bastards and it's great to take them out. Facehuggers in Alien Isolation run right at you in a straight line, and you shoot them or maybe you smash them. There's really nothing else I can say here. Human enemies in Alien Isolation just stand there when you're shooting them, and they weirdly turn on these access points that make them seem really inhuman. The alien comes in to kill them and they all just stand there like idiots. Androids just make a beeline right for you, and even though they're smart enough to catch your melee attack, which I like, they're not smart enough to realize you're pointing a bolt gun directly at their head. They don't calculate that they're in danger, and if they've taken a lot of damage, they don't try to push you away and escape. They're just basic. Enemies in Prey will come at you with all they've got, and when they've taken a lot of damage, they might vanish into another part of the room and hide. And while there's not a lot of enemy variety, there are interesting variations of enemy types that attack and move in different ways. Electricity attacks, fire attacks, ethereal phantoms that create doubles of themselves and teleport, enemies that make you think about how you're going to handle them. I'm not saying that Alien Isolation needed a large amount of enemy variety. Quite the contrary, I think it's fine for them to have a small number of enemies, but that those enemies should be developed to behave intelligently and realistically when they're trying to sell this game on its realism and its immersion. And since they only had a small number of enemies, they should have been able to focus on making those enemies good. And the lack of interesting AI in Alien Isolation wouldn't be so much of a problem if the game offered complexity in other areas, but we already know that's not the case. Alien Isolation's stealth system is bare bones. Your options are crouch behind something, hide in a locker and wait, or throw something like a flare to distract the dumb AI. And while Prey isn't strictly a stealth game, and other games have more intricate stealth systems, Prey can definitely be played as a stealth game and allows you to expand on it. We can certainly crouch and hide, but there's more to it. If you're sprinting and you suddenly need to hide, you can slide to enter cover faster. As you upgrade your character, you can spec into advanced stealth options that reduce your visibility when crouching. If you've upgraded your strength, you can throw heavy objects to distract enemies, not just things in your inventory, anything around you. Sneaking up on an enemy and hitting them when they don't notice you causes massive damage and a critical hit, which is a great incentive to utilize your stealth options. There are audio and visual cues when something spots you. A small white bar means that an enemy is suspicious that they saw something, but they aren't sure. And the higher the bar gets, to red, indicates how close they are to being sure that you're there. You can even spec into alien powers and use the power of a mimic to turn into a small object and disguise yourself as a coffee mug to avoid detection. Look, I'm not saying that Amanda Ripley needs to turn herself into a coffee mug. I'm just saying that in the world of video games, you have room to create interesting options to complement your gameplay. And in a game with stealth options, it makes for a much better experience when there's feedback about an enemy's suspicion level and thought process. I think one of the most disappointing things about Alien Isolation is how much missed potential there was. The systems are there. The idea of sneaking around and entering codes to open doors or cutting through panels with a torch is good. As I pointed out in the later parts of my Alien video, the game desperately needed sections where there's pressure to get out of places. I mentioned that you should have obstacles that you can push over to slow the alien down occasionally, something like Silent Hill Shattered Memories. We need to have rooms where it's challenging to lose the alien to give you enough time to open locked doors and complete the minigames. Oddly enough, some people have said that the minigames are an intense game mechanic, because if you don't complete them quickly, you'll get killed. It's completely false. The vast majority of door opening minigames and button prompts take place in areas where there are no threats anywhere near you. I'm not saying that it never happens, but I could count the number of times I died while trying to complete a minigame on one hand if I cut off 4 of my fingers. When you're cutting a panel, you're able to look to your sides to make sure you're safe. Again, the systems are in place to create tense moments, and it's shocking that they didn't trust their players enough to take advantage of this. These rooms have one direction to go. Your typical alien evasion area looks something like this. You come into this area here, the exit is at the top, you gotta go down here, play a minigame to unlock a console, the console gives you a code to get a key card, and then you gotta go up to unlock the exit door with that key card. When you get the passcode, the alien is here, so you gotta sneak down the hall, maybe go into this side room to explore and hide, and then when the path is clear, you go to the exit. It's pretty basic. The map design in Prey is far more interesting for dealing with threats in a stealth situation. The main lobby from the beginning of the game, for example, with the History Museum area, 2 staircases, some rooms over there, the bathrooms. When there are enemies here, you have options. And if you want to take the elevator to get to another floor, but it's too dangerous, you can make the decision to go another way, going through the psychotronics lab to get to the airlock, fly out into space, and enter through another airlock to get where you're going. In Prey, much like in Alien Isolation, there are many doors to unlock. And while Alien only has one solution to every locked door, usually a button prompt minigame with no consequences, Prey provides a series of options for entering some locations. This door downstairs goes to the security station, and in that room is a shotgun, but the key is in this room upstairs that has 2 phantoms in it. At this point in the game, you don't have much, maybe a pistol if you found it, and you have the glue cannon. It's a very dangerous room to enter, so you just go in and play dangerously. Or you can make your way up and discover a vent that leads you inside the security station. Or if you've already found the foam dart gun, you can move this speaker here, crouch on top of it, aim the dart gun at the door button through the window, and now we've bypassed the lock. Look at that. The activity of opening a door has gone from mindless busywork to an engaging exercise in creativity and exploration. Prey also has a stamina system, and I don't know why Alien doesn't. In a survival game, stamina is a pretty common factor. Not all the time, Resident Evil doesn't have it, and I actually hate it in Silent Hill 2 because it serves no gameplay purpose. Stamina is why I mentioned the melee attack in my Alien Isolation review. I said that you can't do anything with melee other than swing wildly. No guarding, no throwing and picking back up, no charge attack, no targeting different parts of the body. I wasn't trying to say that I want a whole bunch of crazy melee options like an action game. You don't have to have all those things. I was just establishing how basic the mechanic was, as I went on to establish how basic the entire game was. It is the most basic melee attack you could possibly have. You just swing it by mashing the button. Let's go to Prey, where you have a wrench. You swing it, but you can also charge it up for a really heavy attack, which is great when you do a stealth hit, or when you freeze something with a glue cannon and you walk up to them and bop them on the head. Running a lot uses your stamina, and using your melee attack depletes your stamina quite fast. It's fine for an enemy or two, but if you're going into a room full of 4 mimics, you'll get tired and you won't be able to swing the wrench very effectively. It's not a super complex system. You're not swinging a sword like an action hero, but there is some depth to the melee in this game. There are things you need to consider when using it. I want to jump to the item system now. Not only is the way you pick up items incredibly tedious and counterintuitive in Alien Isolation, but it's completely pointless. Let's look at 2 different kinds of inventory systems, Resident Evil and Doom Eternal. Resident Evil has limited inventory space, but you can accumulate resources in a single space like ammo. You can have a gun, and that takes up 1 space. You can have a healing item, and that takes up a space. If you pick up a clip of 15 bullets, that takes up a space. But if you pick up another 15 bullets, they're placed into the same inventory space. In Resident Evil, you are asked if you want to pick up an item, and that's an important question to pose to the player because they are managing tight inventory space, and the game doesn't let you put things down. Walking over an item and automatically picking it up would be a huge inconvenience because your inventory would fill up and then you're screwed because you can't pick up an important item. In Doom Eternal, you pick up items automatically by walking over them because you're not managing inventory space in that game. You're able to pick up and hold as many things as you want, but there are caps on how large your resources can be. You can only hold 150 plasma rounds in the early game, and walking over more plasma ammo won't do anything. Doom doesn't need to stop with every item and ask, "Do you want to pick up the plasma ammo?" Because of course I do. There's no reason not to. It's not like if I pick up the plasma, I won't have room for the shotgun shells. There's no inventory management in Doom like there is in Resident Evil. Picking up one item doesn't affect the ability to pick up another. This is important. Alien Isolation's inventory system is totally confused because it wants to be like Resident Evil's, where you're thinking about what to pick up, but it functions like Doom's. You can carry as many weapons as you want, you can't run out of inventory space, and your resources like scrap, bonding agent, even throwable weapons like grenades all have caps on them, like Doom. In Alien Isolation, opening the box tells you exactly what the items are that you can pick up, and then gives you the choice between taking all of them or just taking some of them. And I just have to ask, why? Why would you possibly just choose to pick some of them and not all of them? What's the point of this choice? If you pick all of them, the ones that you can't take due to already having the max number allowed in your inventory will automatically be denied, and you'll just take the ones you can hold. And choosing to take everything has no effect on your inventory space because you're not managing it. You can pick up whatever you want in this game. Just because you have a bunch of bonding agent doesn't mean you can't pick up the SCJ injectors. They all have their own separate reserved spaces. So just give me the item if I can hold it, or don't give it to me if I've already hit the item cap. Why is this option here? It's not like carrying more items causes you to make noise. I have a massive arsenal here and it doesn't matter what any of these items are. Just pick them up. Why not? There is no reason for the player to carefully select which items to take. So in this game, you walk up to a box, press E, press R to pick all the items you can grab, and then press Q to exit, and it turns every box opening into an exercise in tedium. How does Prey handle this? Well, Prey has a Resident Evil style inventory. Everything takes up space, large items take up multiple spaces, and eventually the inventory can be expanded. In Prey, it's actually important to look at what you're picking up. Let's walk up to a container and Prey. First of all, there's no button prompt to open, you just see what's inside, and all you have to do is press F and you take the item. If you're managing small inventory space, you can scroll and select the items you want and pick them with F. And when you're done, you just walk away. There's no button to open or close the container because there's no need for one. It's fast, it's convenient, it's intuitive, it's unintrusive, it's simple, and most importantly, it makes sense for the game that it's in. And then there's a more complex option if you want it. If your inventory is full when you approach a container, you can press G to search and bring up that container's inventory space. And you can place some of your own items inside of it, so you can take the items from the container if you decide that they're too valuable to leave behind. Prey presents the same choice that Alien Isolation presents, the choice between taking a single item or all items. Only in Prey, there's an actual reason behind that choice. Sticking with the inventory, let's shift to the crafting system. You might get the impression from my Alien video that I'm against crafting. I'm not. I do find it to be completely unnecessary padding in a lot of games. It's something that turns me off from The Evil Within 2 and Horizon Zero Dawn, but it's because I think most games with crafting don't really do anything interesting with it. Like I said in my review, if you're gonna put crafting in a hardcore survival game like The Long Dark, where you're freezing to death in the snow and hunting rabbits with stones, I totally get it. Crafting shouldn't just be in the game because the developers said, let's make them find lots of materials and have to build items in their inventory menu. That'll be immersive. Thank God there's no unnecessary crafting in God of War 2018. The thousands of armor pieces with different stats was bad enough. You hear me, Santa Monica? Don't you dare put crafting in the next God of War, and bring back jumping and performance-based XP. Prey has a crafting system, and surprise, surprise, it puts an interesting twist on it. First of all, the crafting is complementary to the hard item pickups. What I mean is, as you play the game, you find blueprints to craft new items, just like in Alien Isolation. And then you find these fabricator machines where you can craft them. So you can craft a medkit, but you also find medkits all throughout the game. You're not always relying on crafting for everything, just when you need to, or when you want to craft something as you're planning a strategy. As you play Alien Isolation, you can't help but notice how stiff your character feels. You can only walk, sprint, or crouch. And of course there's leaning around corners, but that's not movement. I'm not saying you should be able to do flying jump kicks in the game, but your mobility is quite basic. I already mentioned the crouching slide from Prey that would be nice to have in Alien Isolation, and while I don't need Amanda Ripley to be double jumping around, she should at least be able to ascend small steps that don't even come up to her knees. They could have put in a vaulting system where table-sized objects can be climbed over. Something like that, combined with good object placement in larger, more complex rooms involving outmaneuvering the alien, could have been really engaging to play. Prey, of course, has better player movement that makes exploring the world much more interesting. It has all the alien basics, including leaning around corners, but you can jump. There's no double jump, but you get a glide move from the spacesuit, allowing you to make long jumps, look for important items, find alternate paths into locked rooms. You also have sections where you're out in space and you have full control over your movement. Both Alien and Prey have side and main characters, and the ones in Prey are far more interesting. The head of security that doesn't quite trust you, your brother who's holding secrets, the creepy chef in the crew quarters, the two ladies that were in a relationship but had a bad breakup right before the Typhon outbreak, the robot helpers that pull you in conflicting story directions. There's interesting stuff here if you're looking for it. Alien has plain girl who does nothing, your android friend who does nothing, guy who shows you how to sneak around and dies, doctor who needs keycard and dies, and guy who wants to blow up the ship. It's not like any of these people are memorable in any way, they're as basic as everything else. The environments are a bit lacking too. Alien thankfully takes you to a few cool looking places, like the reactor core, the nest, the outside space section. It's just unfortunate that these places are more like big rooms and not actual maps to explore. The gameplay really just takes place in maps that feel the same. They all kind of look the same, they're all lit the same way. I get that they're going for a certain aesthetic here, but the look of Alien the movie works much better in a 2-hour movie than an extended 20-hour game. Prey has a lovely variety of maps, full of interesting areas to explore. Psychotronics feels totally distinct from the Arboretum. Exploring the main lobby feels nothing like flying through the Guts tunnel. I do think Prey could have benefited from a few more horrific environments, but the scale and variety of what's there is really impressive. And finally, the story of Prey is better than Alien Isolation's. In this category, Prey wins by default because Alien doesn't really have a story. Like I said before, it has lore, it has background information. You learn about the ship and what happened there, but not about what's happening now, because very little actually happens in the game. It's not necessarily the game's fault, it's based on the movie Alien, which is pretty light on story itself. It's just about people trying to survive in a ship with an alien. The story isn't what makes that movie great. It's the direction and the performances and the art and so many other things. Aliens, the sequel, is a much better story, even if as a movie you may like it less. In Alien Isolation, you can stop at any moment and say, what's going on right now? What does my character want to do? And most likely you won't have an answer to that question. In Prey, who your character is and what's happening is crucial to your understanding of the game, and you encounter multiple characters that play prominent roles in how things play out. Combined with the backstory that you come to learn, it all works really well. It isn't the greatest story of all time, but it's pretty interesting and serves to motivate the player's decisions and inspire curiosity. And there you have it, 13 reasons why Prey is better than Alien Isolation. If you liked this video, like and subscribe and all that stuff. I don't normally do videos in the style of lists, and I'm not going to get in the habit of it. I just thought it worked well for this particular topic. This video was pretty fun to do, and I really want to do a full video on Prey someday. And hopefully I never have to talk about Alien Isolation ever again. See you guys soon for another video praising something I love or tearing apart something I hate.